We're going to talk about recruiting, the Georgia Bulldogs, and G Day, what that means, all of those things tied together. If you see the two floating heads on your screen, you already know it's Dean Legge and Matt DeBerry from Dog Post, attempting to make you a smarter Georgia fan. And today, Matt, let's talk about Georgia's G Day as it relates to recruiting. This is as big a recruiting event as the school has put on lately, and the players couldn't even see or talk to the coaches, but a lot of them were there. Why don't you give us a rundown, and we can send people to the site for more details?
Absolutely. Now, usually this is one of the bigger weekends of the year as it relates to recruiting, and almost every other year, before last year when they didn't even have G Day, you had almost every prospect in the South, maybe across the country, coming in. I mean, that's how Lewis Seen really had Georgia towards the top of his list. Keely Ringo came in, and Georgia took the momentum from there. But this year, a little different. They did have a few commitments in town from their current 2022 class. Some out-of-state guys, Bear Alexander from Texas, Jalen Walker from North Carolina, but a lot of young in-state guys. All those guys are on the story I wrote this morning, but guys who have the potential to be five stars down the road, but freshmen, sophomore, juniors in high school. So for all those names, make sure you head over to Dog Post. But lots of young talent, Dean, and I think it was good to get them on campus early in their recruitment, because I do think that this is a visit that they'll remember forever. So Georgia's put themselves in a really good spot for a lot of young in-state kids early on.
Yeah, Saturday, and you weren't there, I was, but Saturday was very similar to a regular game in the pandemic, spaced out, relatively loud relative to the amount of people
Yeah.
that were there. But there were a lot of guys who, I don't know if this was their first visit to Athens. Why don't you give us generalities about sort of what you heard from a lot of different guys?
Yeah, some of them were able to meet with other recruits and some of the players on the team. One of their linebacker commits told me he got to meet a few of the linebackers there. Obviously, they can't speak with the coaches just yet. We're still in a recruiting dead period. So, really weird type of event. I think if they were allowed to have face-to-face contact with the Georgia staff, they would have had a lot more kids there. But this is a weekend also where there are a lot of 7-on-7 tournaments going on in the state. A lot of kids are big into that, and they're going to be taking their official visits to Georgia in June anyway. So a lot of them didn't even make it to G Day, but a lot of them were able to walk around town. I mean, Athens is like no other, and you're able to see downtown Athens. I think one of the young in-state kids told me, he loves the food, and they said raisin canes. He said he loved the food there, so Athens
It
always
is good.
helping out. It is good. So even the food was helping out with some of the recruiting over the weekend.
I wouldn't. I like Raising Canes, but that's not what would come to mind immediately. But
Right,
it actually
right.
is quite good. Um, how does this set up for the future? How does G Day set up for the future? Because believe it or not, when you look at the board, um, uh, Tate Ratledge, now he's going to be a guy that probably plays, and getting him on campus really did matter for Georgia 3, 4 years ago. I mean, 3, 4 years from now, guys will remember. This sort of sets the tone for their first real involvement with Georgia. Because again, anyone who's getting recruited right now, they've not been on a visit in any way. They certainly have not been on an official, and they've barely squeaked by playing their high school career if they're in the South. Other parts of the country didn't play in the fall.
Yeah, and this is the first GDA that I haven't, been covering. And usually there are recruits all over the place. And ever since Kirby's been there, he's made it, a point to pack Sanford Stadium, make it a great environment
An
because so many
event.
recruits are in town. Absolutely. I still remember, the 92, 93,000 GDA game. How many recruits were there that are either currently playing on the team or now in the NFL? Some of them. So. It is a big deal. There's a reason why Kirby has made it such a big event and why they like to throw the ball around. I mean, some of the kids told me it was a great game. They were throwing it around towards the end. It wasn't boring
It wasn't boring.
as it relates to other spring games, which can be very boring. So it is an event. It's something that a lot of Georgia fans try to make it out to. It used to be free. I think they charged maybe $10 this time, but it's always a great weekend for people to get back into town, and the recruits see that. They see the environment, they see the culture going on, and a lot of them have never been to a stadium that big, depending on where they're coming from, and to see so many fans there just for a spring game. Everyone tells me it's always impressive. You throw in the game day atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
there also, and recruits can definitely get an idea of what it's like to play there in the fall.
Well, and I talked with a Georgia official on Saturday, and they reiterated that the plan is to have 93,000 people there. So this may be the last time that we see that sort of crowd. Why don't you tell us who was there, and if folks want to read more about this recruiting weekend, which I would encourage you to do, we've got a link just below. Go into Dog Post to read sort of the details. This was a very well reported story from Matt about, and these are high level kids that are not just getting recruited by Georgia. So I would encourage you to go to the site, click the link, read, and see if you're interested in reading even more. That's what we do all the time. It's what we're known for. And this really, I have to say, Matt, was a very, very well reported article. Why don't you give us the overview of things, and folks can read the details inside the story.
Yeah, a few of the guys that were there, obviously Jalen Walker, and these guys all gave me quotes now, which is great. So I was able to reach out to them as soon as they got home, and of course they got back to me.
No,
And
you're so important. Yeah.
absolutely. But Jalen Walker was there with his whole family. He's the most recent four-star linebacker, and that's a big deal. This is a guy. Remember, they got away from Clemson. This kid's from North Carolina, decided to drive past Clemson, commit to Georgia. He's a big deal. His entire family was there. Bear Alexander, one of the top defensive linemen in the country from Texas. They're going to have to keep recruiting him like he's still uncommitted. So that was a big deal to get him on campus. And then some Grayson kids, some young Grayson kids. They've got there's a 2025 kid that they offered as an eighth grader. He'll play at Grayson and maybe start for them, which is crazy. I've heard a lot of buzz about him. He gave me some great quotes too that you can read down on the story. And they've got an offensive lineman who I think could be a five-star. He was in town. There's a big kid at Pace Academy, a top 2024 defensive lineman. He was in town. The picture in the story that I have is both of those guys, two young kids that look like they're seniors in high school already. So lots and lots of young talent that you've probably not heard of if you just cover or if you just pay attention to the team and not recruiting. So a lot of new names that you're going to be hearing about a lot more over the next few years. And to get back almost through this COVID time, their first visit being to Georgia, the in-state program. I do think it's going to be a big deal for a lot of these guys moving forward.
And the calendar sets up for about 6 weeks from now, probably as consequential a visit as we've had. Well, as consequential, the most consequential visit we've had in the last sort of 24 months, because there haven't been visits. So 24 months, now I'm making it longer than it really is, but 16 months, whatever. What should folks be expecting in June?
June is probably going to be crazy recruiting. I'm going to be writing recruiting stories hopefully every day on a lot of these guys because they can finally take official visits. And the first weekend of June is so big. That's when they have Gunnar Stockton on campus, Nylon Morissette, a wide receiver target, Oscar Delp, Kojo Antwi. A lot of guys in the beginning. Two top 100 players in the country on the offensive line will be there in June. A lot of out-of-state guys coming in. I mean, everyone is trying to get these visits in because most of the time, Dean, they want to get this done before their senior season starts. And if they're not committed going into the fall, then they're going to make their commitment around signing day. No one likes to do it in the middle of the fall. So if you want to make your decision before August, you got to take official visits now. So as soon as they open up, you're going to see a ton of talent coming through Athens. For all the names, I'd have to go back and read my own story. There were so many guys coming in. So hard to really say off the top of my head. But that first weekend of June is going to be really big.
Well, the guys in recruiting have to make a decision. I want you to make the decision to click the story below. It's important. We wouldn't be saying that if it weren't. Matt, thanks for your reporting. We'll see everyone over on the website.